Today we're going to cover Kennedy and look into his status as a spoiler for the 2024 election. Who is more scared of Kennedy? Is he actually going to take more from one side than the other? How would he do in the head-to-head matchups? And what is the status of his ballot access? So let's get into it. Most of this data has been put out by Kennedy himself. This is on his official site, so take it with a little bit of grain of salt. So this is from last week, and the headline is Biden is the real spoiler. Kennedy, only candidate who can beat Trump. And Kennedy has done some polling. He used Zogby, and he's got 26,000 likely voters in this poll. That is a significant amount, which comes out to a 0.6% margin of error. And it looks like he did this in all 50 states. He looked at the head-to-head matchup between Biden and Trump. Then he did himself against Biden and himself against Trump. We'll take a look at the maps in just a minute, but he does have Trump beating Biden. However, Kennedy is able to beat both Biden and Trump. Biden is a wider margin. Trump is very narrow. So with the discussion about being a spoiler, Kennedy has a quote right here. It says, to be a spoiler, a candidate has to fulfill two requirements. First, they must not be able to win themselves. And second, by participating in the election, they must prevent someone else from winning who otherwise would. So it looks like that backs up the results he got. Without Kennedy, Biden is going to lose. And with Kennedy, he would be able to beat Trump. He also called on Biden to step aside. And obviously, we know that's not going to happen. And then he also presented this no spoiler pledge. So it looks like Kennedy is not going to just go away. He definitely seems serious about participating in this 2024 presidential election. So the polling was not really that easy to find. 538 does have every state on here, so you can take a look at it here for the head-to-head matchups. On the top, Kennedy versus Trump. It says +1, but it does show it tied at 42. Kennedy and Biden shows Kennedy up 7 points. Now with the individual states, it's kind of a mix. Now again, keep in mind Kennedy is behind this poll. It is a huge sample size, but generally Kennedy is doing better than Biden. And there's also states where he does better than Trump. So you could spend some time out here looking through all the data. I'm not going to go over everything, but I am going to go over the final maps. So first, they've got Biden versus Trump. And with that matchup, Trump wins with 294 electoral votes to Biden's 244. And that one, Trump flips Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin. It would have been nice if you could hover over this and get a quick overview of the margins. But either way, he's presenting a solid win for Trump here if Biden continues to be the nominee. Meanwhile, Biden maintains all his blue states with the exception of Virginia as well as Maine. I assume that is Maine at large, and both of those flip red. And down here it says in a three-way race between Biden, Trump, and Kennedy, Kennedy's presence shifts the states of Maine and Virginia to Biden's column and no states to Trump's column. So Kennedy's presence helps Biden, but Biden still loses to Trump. Next, they've got a head-to-head just between Kennedy and Biden, and this one is a complete massive landslide. Kennedy dominates with 367 to Biden's 171. Kennedy flips a ton of states here, including New York, and this seems especially notable because Kennedy has got to have much lower name ID between himself and Biden. Maybe in an actual campaign, his support would go down, but based on this, it looks like Kennedy is close to going for a clean sweep. Curiously though, Biden still hangs on to the swing states of Michigan and Pennsylvania. Now, how about Kennedy and Trump? That one is extremely close. Kennedy gets it by the narrowest margin of 270 to Trump's 268, and that one, Trump hangs on to several of the key swing states, including Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. But Kennedy still wins Georgia. He also wins Utah and Iowa. So that is a mixed bag right there, but Kennedy shows that he has the edge. There's no telling what would actually happen, but Kennedy also bolsters his case with this data here. He's got himself versus Biden with ad spending, and this goes back to last October, but Biden has spent significantly more than Kennedy with over 36 million to Kennedy's 2.1. Now that certainly might go up as Kennedy has picked his running mate in Nicole Shanahan. She's got some deeper pockets to potentially make Kennedy a little bit more competitive financially. Here we've got a comparison of monthly website visits. Looks like Kennedy is over 1.1 million while Biden is at about 660,000. And how about website engagement? I wasn't expecting this kind of data, but the visit duration for Kennedy is over 3 minutes while Biden's is just over 1 minute. And then we've got a visual here of social media that shows the engagement and the growth for Kennedy versus Biden. Of course, Kennedy's going to put out the data that makes him look the most favorable, but in this, it looks like it's no contest whatsoever. And then he's got an overwhelming majority of Americans think President Biden is too old for another term. Looks like as of February, it's up to 86%. So what is the status of Kennedy at his ballot access? Well, on his official site, he does have a tracker showing the process and the status. He basically has to get signature requirements in all the different states during a certain window. He's already got it in several states, most notably Nevada, Michigan, and North Carolina. And there are states where the window is not even open yet, like here in Wisconsin. That starts July 1st. So it does seem like he has a serious operation to actually compete in this election. election. But usually with third-party candidates, both the Democrats and the Republicans don't really want to have to deal with it. There's going to be fears that he's going to take away votes from their side. This recent New York Times article outlines some of the ballot access fights that Kennedy has undergone. So it's going to be debatable who he's going to hurt more or if he's going to hurt anybody at all. There's always a chance that people who vote for Kennedy would have just otherwise sat out the election. Since there's no way to know exactly what's going to happen, there's going to be those fears from the two major parties. My view is that Kennedy has spent his entire life as a Democrat up until very recently. He's got a significant background as an environmental lawyer. The vast majority of his views seem to line up with the Democrats, but in recent times he might have just a few views that don't fit neatly into the establishment box. So because of that, he's a complete outcast with the Democrats. Now maybe 2 or 3 of those views do have more appeal with Republicans than Democrats. The bulk of his history as a Democrat to me seems like he would be more palatable for Democrats than Republicans. If someone like Liz Cheney became an independent, I would think Republicans would be much more open than Democrats to supporting her. Her entire history is associated with being a conservative Republican, but her defining trait is going against Trump in recent years. That has made her an outcast with the GOP. Democrats like to prop her up, but in the end it would be tough to imagine many Democrats actually supporting her given all her other views. That's kind of how I see it going with Kennedy. Now he's still crafting his campaign and might evolve on some of his views. That's very possible. But given that he did initially challenge Biden for the Democratic nomination, the Democrats do seem to be more scared of him at this point. There's been a lot of behind-the-scenes legal battles to keep Kennedy from getting on the ballot in various states. There is some discussion of that in this article here. Now, I do think the Republicans would do something similar if the threat was from their side. But given Kennedy has come from the left, that's why it seems like Democrats are doing more to try to stop him. Now, I also think that does run counter to the narrative of Democrats trying to stand up for democracy, but I do think the vast majority of politicians are rife with a good amount of hypocrisy if the situation is to their benefit. So while the Democrats are concerned about Kennedy, Trump is also showing some recent concerns. Here's an article that says Trump looks to cut off oxygen to RFK Jr. I did see a comment from Trump on Kennedy that showed that he's polling very, very low. He's trying to diminish his status. Trump pretty much does that with everybody. But ultimately, I do think Kennedy can have appeal to both sides. We've seen poll after poll that shows voters are not at all excited about this Biden versus Trump rematch. There is an appetite for a third party, so that's where Kennedy has an opening. But it does seem like once a third party does try to make an entrance, then the establishment usually tries to come in and snuff it out. I have not followed Kennedy extremely closely, but I have seen a lot of unfavorable media coverage about him. I've seen a hyper focus on anything controversial. I've seen smears of him and his supporters. Some of you might say that's all completely legitimate, but others might say the corporate media and the two-party duopoly will do anything they can to maintain the status quo. So we still have some questions about Kennedy's ballot access. Then we have to see what kind of polling he's able to get and if he could potentially get into the debates. There might be questions about pollsters that don't want to show Kennedy gaining support to potentially get into those debates. Plus, he's got to put out ads and try to appeal to both sides, as well as a lot of voters that are in the middle and exhausted with the current situation. It is an uphill climb for Kennedy, and I think it can be tough to figure out what to believe about where he stands. He's got a significant track record. I do see him going after both sides. I don't at all think he's running this campaign and secretly hoping Trump wins. I also don't think he's running and secretly hopes Biden wins. It does seem like he's trying to capitalize on an opening for a third party. It's impressive that he's sticking it out. I would not want to be in his position. He does seem to have a base of support. Plus, I've seen all kinds of bizarre pylons to try to discredit him. It is a challenge to know what's what, but we're going to see what happens with Kennedy, and I'm going to leave it there for now, so let me know in the comments. What do you think about Kennedy? Do you think he's running a legitimate campaign and he does want to take down both sides? Or do you think his campaign is a joke and he's just a conspiracy theorist? What do you think about the polling he put out that shows him beating both Biden and Trump? Which side do you think is more scared of Kennedy? What about his ballot access? How's he going to do in the polling? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.